Twitch streamer Asmongold says that Bungie's upcoming shooter marathon needs to make sure all of the female characters in the game are effable. He's wrong.
You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
And he needs to advocate for the complete removal of female characters from this shooter marathon. In fact, shooters don't need to have female characters at all. Let's get into this. I wrote this up over at fandompulse.com. Let's just play what Asmongold had to say right here. Let's take a listen.
I think that pretty much every single circumstance, it's always a bad idea to make characters that are not conventionally attractive. Because this is...
He's absolutely right. We should not have video games making ugly characters. And these characters are indeed ugly. You can see here from Manga Lawyer. I don't even know what this is. It looks like some kind of nightmare from a horror film or a horror video game that should be chasing you down and executing you. That's like what this thing is. This is like a villain, and it's just extraordinarily creepy, extraordinarily ugly. In fact, we have this guy over here, Jorgata, even noting that it looks like a nightmare, responding to this post from Sael. And these characters are indeed ugly. I mean, they're objectively ugly. There's nothing beautiful about them. They are creepy and weird. Yorch Torch even here noting that it is clearly modern feminist designs, modern transgender ideology designs being injected into this game. And it is ugly. It is ugly. And people reject ugly. They are not interested in ugly things. Now, there is a place for ugly, and it should be obviously as a place for people to be scared of. Usually that is what you see with ugly. But anyways, let's continue with what Asmongold has to say here.
Again, this is a shooter game, and shooter games are going to be primarily played by men. So if you're making a shooter game that's primarily made for men, then you should make sure that all of the female characters in the game are fuckable. And I know this might sound crazy to say, but I'm just going to say it. That's what you should do. That's what you should do. Because
that's absolutely not what they should do. They should actually remove the female characters from the game altogether. In fact, many shooters never had female characters to begin with. So Asmongold is falling for this liberal trap that female characters need to be in the game to begin with. As I said, he needs to dream a little bigger. If you go back and look at Counter-Strike Global Offensive or Counter-Strike 2, there's an article that this activist Faria Bhatti wrote over at PC Games N back in 2023. And while she's whining about the lack of female characters in the game, she noted that there were no female characters until 2019 when it introduced Agent Ava. The game released in 2012. So for 7 years, one of the most popular shooters never had playable female characters. You don't need playable female characters to have a popular shooter. We can look at other examples. Halo. It didn't have a playable female character until Halo 3 when it introduced Miranda Keyes in 2007. The original Halo Combat Evolved released in 2001 when it became a mega franchise. Call of Duty did not introduce a female playable character until 2013 with Call of Duty Ghosts. The first Call of Duty game was released in 2003. So for a decade, Call of Duty did not have playable female characters. So shooters don't need playable female characters to be popular to begin with. And then we also, if we look outside of the shooter genre, you can look at other genres, RPGs. Look at Ubisoft. In 2018, it revealed that Assassin's Creed Odyssey players were choosing Alexios compared to Cassandra. 2/3 were choosing Alexios compared to just a third choosing Cassandra. In 2013, BioWare revealed that Mass Effect 3 players chose to play as a male Commander Shepard 82% of the time. And then we look at 2021, Larian Studios and Baldur's Gate 3, one of the wokest games out there, they admitted that the players were basically made the default Vault Dweller in this hotfix update, despite them having numerous character customization options. In a hotfix, the company said this: before the fixes, let's share something you've created yourselves. This is your own fault through your choices in character creation. We took the most popular choices in character creation and recreated this. We thought our analytics system wasn't working. We checked, it is. And this is what people created. It's like the male generic character. So again, even if you look at RPGs and outside of the shooter genre, you don't need female characters. People aren't playing female characters for the most part, especially in shooters. In fact, with shooters, we definitely shouldn't have female characters because it is clearly trying to normalize women in frontline combat roles, and we shouldn't want women in frontline combat roles. Roderick Hurst provides an excellent argument over at Those Catholic Men. He says, if the concept of vocation is measured by being in union with God and following his will, then combat, the purpose of which is the intentional destruction of life, is entirely contrary to the life-giving qualities inherent in the feminine genius. War is brutal, he adds. The front lines of combat are a disgusting, abhorrent, crude, and destructive place. This may sound very old-fashioned or even chauvinistic to a non-Catholic, but it's not. It's chivalrous because the simple fact is that combat is no place for women. And he's absolutely right. It is no place for women here in reality. It's no place for women even in our video games and fiction. They don't have a role there. Now, obviously, you're going to have exceptions, people like Joan of Arc. But even with Joan of Arc, she was leading the troops into battle, etc. But she wasn't out there, for the most part, on the front lines hacking people down. Right? That's not what she was doing. So even when you have those exceptions, they're typically not shown as frontline warriors, as these shooter games like Marathon are trying to do. So we don't need females in shooter games at all. I think there's plenty of evidence that shows that you don't need them. You don't need them at all. Nevertheless, Asmongold continues trying to justify the own liberal trap he's fallen into. Let's take a listen.
What people want to do, that's what girls will cosplay. Girls don't want to cosplay ugly, weird-looking, androgynous, creepy characters. And all of that, like, think about how much advertising Marvel Rivals gets because of how many girls try to cosplay the characters.
So he's trying to justify having attractive female characters in the game to begin with because girls want to cosplay the characters. Who cares? Who cares? Like, who cares what girls want to do about cosplaying characters? Again, he already says that this is a male-focused game, and you should be creating the game for those male people, and they want to play male characters. They don't need female characters. I think we see the evidence here. So he's basically just kind of trying to rationalize his own weakness in wanting to have female characters in the game to begin with when we don't need them at all. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.